Welcome to this Crew Coach Masterclass on mental health. This mental health masterclass was really an important topic for me to want to teach because it's been such a conversation now for the past few years. But I got to tell you, for me, it's been a conversation since I'm 16. You guys know a little bit about my story, probably coming from, homelessness and strung out on drugs, and grew up from a divorced family, and there's all this turmoil in my life, and we all come from somewhere. We all have gone through stuff. And so the reason why I feel qualified to even teach on this topic is because, man, it is because of these techniques and these strategies that I'm going to share with you tonight that's allowed me to have the success that I've had, and not be victim to all of my circumstances and all the issues and all the struggles that I've gone through to really stake my claim in life and to be who I am consistently. Don't get me wrong. I'm not talking to you on a pedestal here. I'm not sitting here saying that I've got it all figured out and, I'm the freaking greatest here. That's not what this is about. I still to this day have plenty of struggles, plenty of downtimes. However, I don't stay there long. I have learned a whole bunch of these strategies and these techniques that I'm going to share with you guys tonight that have really paid off in the long run. Mental health, as the conversation is now, really gets pushed to two big things, and that's therapy and drugs. And to be honest with you, I look at mental health as a whole different conversation. Actually, I look at health as a whole different conversation than just medical. I look at the medical side of mental health and the medical side of physical health as really treating the symptoms. Now, don't get me wrong. I just, bit of a disclaimer, like I am huge and big on therapy. I am big on getting professional help if that's what you need. However, I also understand that we can come back from some really dark places in our minds. I understand that from the physical side of things, we can come back from some really low deficits. We have the ability within ourselves to really fortify ourselves beyond anything that you can imagine. And it is with these strategies and these tactics that I'm going to share with you. And it's not through the medical side of mental health. Again, complete disclaimer, I'm not a therapist. And I do want to say that if you really need professional help, if you have a real chemical imbalance and these strategies are not producing the right chemicals for you to overcome your imbalance, then please get help. If you have not come to terms with some trauma or things in your past, please get some help. Please talk to somebody about that. However, most people's mental struggles come from not the chemical imbalances, not the severe trauma that you've gone through. Unless you haven't dealt with it already, then sure, you're bringing that into your future. But I just mean that the mental health that we struggle with in our careers, especially on tour, comes from circumstances, comes from circumstantial pressures, as well as self-inflicted pressures. And I'll talk a little bit more about that as we go. So I just wanted to kind of start off with that. Like, look, if you need some serious help, get some serious help. But I promise you, if you apply what I'm about to share with you tonight and start here, you might not need all of that. Okay? Because you can, like I said, come back from some dark places. I've done it. Okay? I've done it. So the whole outcome, the whole target for this masterclass, I really want you to understand what specific things that we can do, the specific things that we need to understand that is going to give us our best chance at feeling alive and happy and strong and fortified during this process of the pursuit of career and the pursuit of life, to get to actually live the time that we have left to the fullest, and that is mental health. Mental health means that you have a strong mind to be able to enjoy life through the life's challenges. You know, life is not fair. You can guarantee that life will offer you plenty of things to go through and grow through, and frustrating times and frustrating people and things not working out as expected. And life can throw you crazy curveballs. And, fact of the matter is life doesn't get easier. We just have to get better. And that's our aim for this masterclass, is to help us take control of this and actually get better in our lives and in our approach on how we actually deal with circumstances, situations, people, all of that. And we're going to cover it all here tonight. So I hope you're really tuned in, taking notes, really paying attention tonight, because I promise you, you're going to be really grateful and glad that you did. So the problems that we can actually have when we don't have control of our mindset, our mental health, which is what mental health is. It's, like I said, that fortitude, that mental fortitude. It's a self-awareness. It's the ability to be in control of the emotions of the moment and be able to really know where you stand with yourself in these crazy times, right? And the reason why it's so important is because if you don't have control of your mental health, if you don't have the clarity and the confidence in yourself to be able to deal with life's struggles and life's challenges and the career challenges, you're going to succumb to it. Starts with disconnection. You feel disconnected to what you're doing. It starts with being grumpy and irritable and frustrating with the people around you. You start to build up pressure and you start to lash out. It can damage relationships. It can damage work relationships. It can completely strip you of your dreams and your goals and your efforts and your energy. It can completely pull you off focus. And ultimately, if you don't get a grip on this mental health thing, like seriously, not just the symptoms, but the source of the matter, if you don't get a grip on this, it can lead to depression. It can lead to serious depression. And I've been there. I'll tell you, and you may have had your own depression spouts. Everyone has had bouts of depression. Sometimes they last short bursts. Sometimes, they can last a long time. But you can guarantee that the way life is, it's so easy to get lost and caught up and depressed. And so that's why it's so important to have strong mental health, right? What it gives you is the fortitude, the strength to stand in your power through challenges. What it gives you is a confident ability to handle poor communicators and poor expectations of others. It gives you the ability to appreciate the struggles and the challenges. And also it gives you huge empathy for other people's challenges that they're going through when you have a strong mind. And so it's important. It can literally dictate your ability to move forward, even in your career, much less your day-to-day actions, much less your, dreams, right? Like, we're talking about stepping into huge career dreams here in Crew Coach specifically. How are you going to do that if you're quick to crumble under one frustrating conversation or a rejection, or maybe some serious actual stuff happens to you? Maybe somebody close to you passes away. Maybe something traumatic happens to you. How are you going to be able to continue to live and be alive through this life, through a lot of those traumas? And how? It's through strengthening your mindset. And so I just want to, like I said, just be a little bit ginger here on, not Ginger the beard, but a little bit light here as well at the top of this, to let you know that I understand completely that people have serious troubles, the imbalances, addictions, all of this stuff. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the 90% of crew people that I know that struggle with mental health. They don't work to fix it. I've lived with them for decades on buses. So many of them don't have the core foundations, much less advanced tactics and strategies I'm going to share with you tonight. They don't even have the core foundation of their life right. And they're already trying to figure out what external things can help them heal the symptoms, So the first step to figuring out how to take your mental health and strengthen it is to take full responsibility of the change. Like, seriously, not just like in AA, they say, well, the first step is awareness. You got to admit you're an alcoholic, Well, the first step to strengthening your mental health issues before they become issues, because mental health is not always an issue. Your mind's health can be a positive topic until it becomes a mental health issue or a mental health problem, right? So we're talking about taking full responsibility of our mental health before it becomes an issue. And you got to know that it's in your control to turn it around. Sometimes it requires extreme self-awareness, but it is absolutely in your control to turn it around. Here in Crew Coach, I interviewed someone recently, Carl Harden. If you haven't seen it, for you Crew Coach members, go into the education channel, or not the education channel, the Career Chats channel, and watch that interview. That guy went through some serious trauma and was able to pick himself back up through it all. Took him a while, but it was because of the mental health work that he's done. And now he's stronger than ever. But I know people that would have went through something like him that would have never recovered. They would have never given themselves permission to take control. They would have stayed on therapy forever and never came to terms with the past. So just understand that the first step to your mental health is you taking responsibility for the change. If you're in a poor mindset right now, and maybe you're listening to this right now, having had a tough day or a tough week, or, you're feeling like you're spinning, you're in the right place, because I'm going to share with you, let me just start here about a story. Let me share a story with you, okay, about taking full responsibility for the change in your mind, because we're talking about mental health here, okay? We're not talking about pills, just pills and therapy. Trust me, your body does not have a deficiency in Prozac. Never had Prozac from the beginning. There's a deficiency in some other areas. And like I said, the first thing is to take responsibility of the change. So I told the story before in the crew room audio, but there is a young girl. Her name is Kirsty Ennis. You can look her up. And she is an above the knee amputee. Okay. This woman is incredible. Now, what makes her so incredible is her mindset and the strength that she has, because she went through some things in her life that should have caused her to completely be a victim to this trauma completely. She, at 20 years old, maybe 19, she joins the Marines because her parents were Marines. Now, this little blonde-haired girl, she was like, I want to be a machine gunner in the Marines. One of the toughest things that you can do. Huge, heavy machine guns. But not only that, she wanted to be the machine gunner in helos and helicopters. and so, very strong-willed woman from the start. However, her helicopter goes down in Afghanistan from a mechanical failure, and she was the only one to survive this horrific accident. She gets ripped to pieces. Her jaw's hanging out, her eyes hanging out, her leg has been chopped to pieces. Her below the knee has been chopped to pieces, and she almost died. Well, it took her a while to obviously recover from that, but through that, she goes through some stressful mental traumas. I mean, some hardcore mental traumas. She had to make a decision because they amputated her foot. Then the infection started to creep up, and then they amputated right below the knee. And eventually she had to make the decision of going above the knee, which is a whole different type of life. You know, it's one thing if you still have your knee, you can, you know, really do a lot more functions. But man, she had to make a decision to cut her leg off above the knee. And when she did that, she knew that life would never be the same for her. Obviously, it was never was, but being above the knee amputee is huge. It's a different type of lack of mobility. Okay. And so she went into full depression. I mean, she already had PTSD from the helicopter crash and being in the Marines and going through that trauma. And she was in a full-blown depression. She's sitting in her living room couch one day, and she's sitting there with her mom, completely depressed, completely being a victim. And you're probably thinking in your head, well, dude, she was in a helicopter crash, right? Like serving her country, and like, of course, she lost limbs, and her face is disfigured, and you know, she was going through all of this, like I said, PTSD, but emotional trauma, like she's never gonna have somebody to love her again because of her eye, you know, her face, and just all of this stuff going on in her heart and her head and in her life. And she was sitting on the couch one day, and she looks over at her mom. She's, you know, kicked back, and there was a magazine sitting over there next to her mom. And she said, "Mom, would you mind handing me the magazine?" And her mom said, she thought for a minute, and her mom said, "Kirsty, get it your damn self." Now you might be thinking that's pretty freaking harsh for someone that's going through what Kirsty was going through at the time. But they interviewed her mom, and her mom said, "Look, it was the hardest advice and the hardest coaching I gave my daughter. But I knew that if I didn't force her to understand that she's in control of this future, she would always be a victim to her circumstance. She would always be living in this past story about what happened to her and where her life is now, you know." And her mom's like, "Kirsty, get it your damn self." And Kirsty said that right there changed everything for her in a positive way. She ends up obviously getting it her damn self. But long story short is Kirsty created an incredible life for herself at that point, where she thought was, you know, the beginning of an end, was actually the beginning of something incredible. And she ends up becoming a mentor and for other veterans, and really started to take control of her life and her future. And instead of focusing on what happened to her and what happened in her past, she focused on what could she do with what she had, because that's all she could do was turn her focus from victim to the past happened to her to what she could make happen in her life. And she ends up creating a business that does multi-millions of dollars. She ends up mentoring all these different veterans that have gone through similar things to help them get back in the right mindset to be able to control the emotions around all the circumstances, right? What we're talking about here, mental health. You know, she ends up, you know, climbing mountains and getting into snow sports, and she became an X Game athlete, not a Paralympic athlete, but an actual X Game athlete, competing with top X Game snowboarders on a sport she had never even done before, missing her leg because she went the complete opposite way. And sometimes that's exactly what we need in our life, is we need the perspective to understand that we're in complete control of these shifts. We got to know that. We got to know that no matter how low you've been, no matter how low you are, man, you can come back from that. You can come back to a place of not only just happy and good and comfortable, but like living life at the highest level, living your career at the highest level, you know? And so I just kind of wanted to get off or start off this masterclass with some powerful perspective about a couple of stories of people like Kirsty and Carl that have been through trauma, that have every reason to have poor mental health, that decided to take control and go through the tough work. It's not going to be easy to apply this stuff. What I'm going to share with you here in just a second is not cough drop fix. This is not stuff that's going to like pop a pill and numb it for a little while until it comes back again because you've healed the symptoms. What I'm proposing for you guys is to have a complete fundamental shift of your mental health, of your mental fortitude, your stability that you have in your life, to be able to really live this at the max. And that's what we're really wanting to do, especially here in Crew Coach, but generally, because here in the touring crew career that we're after, you better believe that you're asking for some mega challenges. You're asking for a lot of crazy relationships and crazy communication with different people and all of this world of touring. If you haven't toured yet, you're in for a real treat, because it can push and pull you like crazy. And so let me dive into some of the techniques and the perspectives that are going to really help you now, tonight, take yourself and really start to put into practice. It's work, guys. It is work. It is going to take work to apply this stuff. But as soon as you put in the work to fortify your mental health on the daily, it eventually becomes a habit. And that habit eventually becomes a practice in your everyday life that you can actually appreciate and really lean into, and know that you can take on these challenges, you can take on tough things, and know that you have the ability to always come back and to get a check on yourself. So the first thing that I want to share with you, you probably heard me speak about this in the past. If you're here in Crew Coach, I know you have. It's something that I've learned from my mentor and my personal coach, is Brendan Burchard. And whenever you're feeling low, whenever you feel off, not before it gets to depression and all that stuff, the first thing that you're going to want to ask yourself is, did I take my meds? And I'm using MEDS as an acronym, and the acronym stands for meditation, exercise, diet, and sleep. MEDS, okay? The reason why I'm starting off with this is because it's foundational. I know for a fact that most roadies, most touring crew completely miss this, okay? I don't care how great they are at their gigs and the skills at which they bring to the table and their communication skills. Most crew completely do not have a personal development routine. Most crew do not start with the source themselves, their own mind. They look for external circumstances to help with their mental health. But the reality is if you're not connected, if you're not feeling great in your body, if you're not eating right and you're not sleeping right, these things have a direct effect on your mind and your performance, your input, and your output. It's huge. And I'm going to drive this home here for just a couple of minutes, because I really want you to understand the importance of taking your meds, okay? So the first one, meditation. I like to say meditation and prayer, depends on your spiritual belief, but it's a bit of both, right? And so there are a few different types of meditations that I do. Look, at the end of the day, what you're focused on when it comes to meditating is to get some quiet first. Meditation, like most of us don't even shut our ears off for long enough. Like, we start to get bored in the quiet, or we need some music or something. I'm talking like, look, all of our senses require energy from us, okay? All of our senses, all right? Your ears draw a lot of energy. It takes up probably about 10 or 15% of your body's energy just to listen to stuff, to tune into stuff. And so take a minute when you're meditating to shut off any of the noises as best as you can, and be able to focus on your breath. It's hard. One thing about mental health is being able to direct your focus. We all understand that if we think about some negative thing and we can start to really stew it up in our head, next thing you know, we're stuck in this negativity loop, right? That's because that's where your focus is. But what meditation will do for you, or a prayer will do for you, is it allows you to center yourself, okay? It allows you to focus on you and your body and your mind and your heart. And these are the important things. This is your machine here. This is the operating system of all of you, of all of us, right? And so when you can quiet your ears for a moment, and focus on your breath, meaning literally try to think about and wipe away all of these crazy things in your head, and seriously breathe in and breathe out and count your breaths. I want you to count the breaths that you take in and out until your mind wanders again, and see how long you can get. I'm telling you, it's not easy. It is not easy to do this exercise. I think I'm probably up to 30 seconds now. Like, that took me a while to get there, but 30 breaths, 30 seconds of focused attention without my mind wandering to something else is pretty dang huge. And when you can control your mind in that situation, you can use that same technique when things are coming at you. It allows you to stop for a second, and you know that you have a technique, you have a tool, you have a resource to get back control of your emotions and back control of your thought, to be able to handle the task at hand, handle the situation at hand, and not let it affect your mind, not let it affect the level of health and strength of your mind. That's what we're talking about here, right? Mental health. So that's one tactic, is counting your breaths. I want to challenge you to do that. Count your breath. Another thing that you want to do when you're meditating is gratitude. Like, seriously, it is impossible for you to be grateful or happy and depressed and angry at the same time. Impossible. You can't do it physically, scientifically impossible. You can't be grateful and happy, really sitting in appreciation, and simultaneously feeling those negative thoughts. Impossible. And so it's a very powerful thing to understand of your ability to control these things. And so when you are feeling off, and you know that you haven't meditated that day, or you haven't done any sort of practice like that, gratitude. That's a great one to start with. Literally close your eyes, and I don't care if you start thinking about the comfortable carpet under your feet, or you're grateful for this moment here, you're grateful to hear, you're grateful to see, you're grateful to speak, you're grateful for the phone that you have, your job, your friends, your family, like whatever it is. I want you to close your eyes, and I want you to think about it. And I want you to feel the appreciation. Like, seriously sit and feel the appreciation of the email response that you got back. Feel appreciative of the food that you ate and the clothes that you have. Feel appreciative of the big and the small things, all of it. Think about them, let them land on you, and be grateful for them. Sit in the appreciation of such. And you will notice how your negative thoughts and your negative energy will start to diminish, almost like magic. Another thing is, when you close your eyes, and this is something to understand, much like the ear, when you hear, our senses are input senses, right? Touch, sight, sound, taste, all of these things are inputs, okay, into our brain, right? Our brain is just a bunch of electrical signals. It requires energy to receive the world. It requires energy to receive it. One of the biggest energy suckers in our body, and most people don't really understand this or know this, is your eyes. Your eyes draw, I think it was like 65% of your body's general energy is taken up by your sight, by your eyes. Obviously, if you're missing or lost senses in some of these areas, the other senses are going to be heightened and pick up where those other senses left off. For instance, my mother is deaf. And so, her other senses, her eyes specifically, draw a lot of energy. And so closing your eyes, a lot of people don't even close their eyes for a minute or two every day. This is not to say that you're going to take a nap. This is literally saying, like, hey, I need to shut off my eyes for a second, my input into my brain, because they're taking a lot of energy. And we all know that energy can be a mind suck, And so closing your eyes really gives you that ability while you're meditating to re-energize and reset for a second. So take some time when you're meditation or you're doing prayer to close your eyes. Hey, something that I would do on tour when I would be in my guitar world or on a bus or something. I would do that before I got heavy into a project, and I knew I needed some mental clarity, and I knew that I needed some re-energizing ability to go in there and attack the task. I would sit and close my eyes for like 1 to 3 minutes. I would just close my eyes, and you can feel, guys, you can feel the change in your mind when you close your eyes. So when you close your eyes and you're breathing and you're practicing gratitude and you're really sitting in appreciation, all of those tactics can help with your mental health, because you're getting connected with you. You're getting connected with the source of the matter. You're giving your brain a break, and you're tuning into your heart, and you're really tuning into your center. You've heard these words before, and meditation and prayer is huge for that. Okay. I wanted to spend a little bit of time on that because that's how important this is. Okay. There's something that I like to do. I did it right before this. It's called Tony Robbins priming. If you Google Tony Robbins priming, you'll see a little 9 or 10 minute video. And it's a breathing technique, because we also know what breathing does. It literally, even in anger management classes, the first thing that they tell anger management people, because when their focus starts to get crazy, is to breathe. When you take full deep breaths, it re-oxygenizes, if that's a word, your lungs and your blood, and it starts to put fresh oxygen into your mind, and it starts to de-escalate the pressure. And that's what we're looking to do for your mental health. So Tony Robbins priming is a mix of breathing with meditation, some visualization, some gratitude practice, all in one. It's very powerful. I've got a variety of different techniques that I use. That's one that I really, really love, especially in the mornings, to get my day going. I do it, and I've done it for so long, for so long. I would schedule this in on my tour days and on my work days. Okay. I mean, seriously, after loading out on some big shows, I didn't care if I was the production manager. I would, right before I went into the shower, I would do my exercise. I would do my meditation, all of that prior to getting into the shower. There's time. Crew just don't make time. We want to jump on the bus, eat after show food, get unhealthy, drink alcohol, and then lay our bodies down and sit in all of those choices. That's what we do. And then we wonder why we're struggling, because we don't take a beat. We don't close our eyes during the day. We're not getting in touch with our heart. So the E in taking your meds is exercise. It's about being in the right state of mind. Much like you're getting centered, when you exercise and you elevate your heart rate, you get fresh oxygen and fresh blood pumping through your brain. Or your body, if you can do this, and your brain, if you could do this outside and do a walk with the outside air, so you're working your immune system as well, and you're getting that vitamin D, like this whole combination of exercise is massive. It does not take much elevation in heart rate. I think it's like within a few minutes of exercising in an elevated heart rate can literally decrease your mental stress by like 80%. That's huge. That's massive. I toured for 20 years and I still work on the road, and I don't know many road people that exercise, and especially the ones that are struggling with mental health. They are struggling with feeling off and depressed, and they're not exercising. That's one component of it. It's a huge one. It's so valuable. And so I just want to stress that to you, that adopt an exercise practice. It's doable. I used to do this one exercise called the M100. I still do it today. I switch it up. I would do sometimes programs and routines, but the M100 it takes anywhere from 2 to 5 minutes to do. It's 3 exercises. You could actually Google and look it up on YouTube. It's called the M100 exercise. I think it's like warm up for a ninja is like the title of it. But anyways, it's a body weight exercise, an exercise that I used to do in hotel rooms, dressing rooms. I would do it on stage. I had other crew doing it with me at some point. Because they would see me doing it. Guys, I practice this stuff that I'm telling you now, and it's allowed me to have such a positive career, even through all the transitions, even through all the rejection, even through all the challenges. And this routine, this consistent daily exercise, is something that contributed to it tenfold. look up the M100. Like I said, right before you get into the shower every night, just pop one out. When you wake up in the morning, just, hey, pop out a real quick M100, wipe your sweat off. You're fine. You're about to go to work. Put your work clothes on, go do the damn thing. And you're gonna find yourself a lot more connected, a lot more energized. That's the funny thing about exercise is you literally energize yourself. And it also, you give some pressure off the heart. You know, the number one cause of death in the US, by the way, is congestive heart failure. It's congestive heart failure. It's fat, fat, basically choking out the heart, you know? And it's terrible. And a lot of it has to do with all of this stuff, and exercise being one that can really help you get control of this, okay? So exercise, meditation, exercise. The next one is diet, all right? We are the same things of the food that we eat, all right? Plain and simple. And I'm just gonna not spend too much time on this because I'm not talking about a diet, going on a diet. I'm talking about literally you are food, meaning the stuff that you eat is made up of the same cells as we are, or at least it should be, you know? And when we eat the right things in our lives, we can literally de-escalate pressure. We can not be so stressed because of the way our body is operating. Our body is a machine, man. And if you eat the wrong things, especially over and over and over and over again, and there's a lot of nasty stuff out there that they're calling food. I like to say, like, because people talk about, well, man, eating healthy is so expensive. I'm like, truth be told, what the real way to reframe that and the real way to relook at that is, it's not that eating healthy is more expensive. It's just that cheap food or bad food is cheap. And that's the truth. It's not even food, they call it, but we ingest it regularly and it's all over. And on the road, it's sometimes tough, but we have a choice. You know, we always have a choice. And in catering, when you're fed catering, there's usually a salad, there's usually a protein option, there's usually better options. You don't have to dive into the pastas. You don't have to get all the crap. And sometimes, truth be told, you can go up to the catering departments and say, hey, do you mind making me a little bit something cleaner? And they'll do it for you. They'll absolutely do it for you. But it's our choice. After show food is a terrible one. Pizzas and burgers and barbecue and fried stuff every single day on the road. What happens is you eat this crap that's barely not even food. You eat this crap, it sits in your body, it doesn't process correctly, it's not a lot of nutrients generally, and it gives you a burst of energy because of the carbohydrates, and then it makes you feel like shit, and it makes you crash, and it affects your mental health. And so I have a book that I read years ago called Eat Smarter. It's by Sean Stevenson. It will change the way you understand your food. It'll change the way you want to eat. And that's where I'm at now. These days, I don't diet. I do what I call the 90-10 life, where 90% of the time I eat smarter based on the principles of this book, which is really, now I see the world this way. And I'm not limited by anything. In fact, I just cooked cookies for us over there. They just are smart cookies. And I really recommend that you grab this book so you can also give yourself the best resource and the best chance at understanding better. Because this is a journey, guys. This is a daily journey. It's not one of these things, it's all of it. And diet is a massive one. A massive one. It affects everything: your energy, your productivity level, the clarity, the way you think, and of course, your mental health. You know, it's hard to bounce back when you're also struggling with diabetes, or you're struggling with severe obesity, or you're struggling with just not having the functions of your body like you need them to, which also affects your emotional aspects because you feel like shit, because you feel like you look like shit and you feel like shit. And so where does your mind go? It goes to shit. It's all affecting. So get control of your diet. And finally, guys, sleep. You know, on the road, it's hard. You know, sometimes it's like you have to just adapt and you have to just figure out how to get the rest. But here's the thing: there's time. And who I'm really focusing on here is the people that are not making the choice to do it. You know, I understand how enticing it is to want to stay up and eat the after show food and drink alcohol and hang out till 1 or 2, even though you got to get up at 6 or 5 to go load in. You do it anyways, when really you could have got on the bus at midnight. You had already eaten already, and you get cleaned up, you go read a book or something and go to bed. That's the truth of the matter. I've done this even when I've been a tour manager and a production manager, where I'm the first one in and last to leave, or the stage manager. It's like, I schedule in my sleep time. I get my sleep. It's proven that 7 to 8 hours of sleep is the best window for our bodies to re-energize. Because what's happening is when we close our eyes, when we shut our brain off, if you eat the after show food, by the way, and you lay down, your body is still trying to digest that food for hours. Your body is working like crazy through the night to try to digest this food. Of course, we won't even go there with alcohol. Alcohol damages brain cells like directly. Fine, I'm not trying to bash you if you want your drinks or whatever, but just know that what you're actually doing here is you're not giving yourself a chance. You're actually voting for mental health issues. You're leaning into the issues by not giving yourself the chance. And so not only are you not getting enough sleep, because you're not taking the time to get enough sleep on show days and on off days, you're battering yourself with poor diet. You're laying down in your bunk, and your body is processing all night to try to figure out how to get this food going. And then you wake up eating more crap food. Your body never processed that. And it's just this cycle. And so one thing that I do is kind of combo with diet and sleep is I intermittent fast. Okay. You probably heard this terminology before, but what that actually means is a 12-hour window that you don't eat from your last meal. And so what that looks like is, let's just say that you skipped dinner because you had to at work, and you just felt like you had to get the after show food because you're tired, okay, or because you're starving. You eat after show food at 1 a.m., okay? Wait 12 hours before you eat another meal, because here's the reality is your body is already good from a sustenance wise, from a food wise, the next morning. You don't have to eat that first meal of the day so quickly. And that's why it's actually called breakfast, because you're breaking a fast. And the fast that you're breaking is a 12-hour window. Your body will utilize all of that you've given it. And what ends up happening is you actually start to shed fat cells, shed a lot of toxins from doing this intermittent fasting. And I do it on the regular. It allows me to live this 90-10 life when it comes to being disciplined with these things. It allows me to have 10% of, okay, I'm out and about. I decide, okay, I'm going to have Chick-fil-A and this, that, and the other, because I understand that 90% of the time I'm doing the right things. So I'll tell you, if you're telling me like, well, Kenny, I've just had freaking a bunch of bad food a few days in a row, and yeah, I'm feeling it. Try intermittent fasting. Wait 12 hours. Like tonight, I'm going to, after I get off this training, I'm absolutely going to have some of this keto ice cream and some of these keto cookies. They're called keto because that's just the marketing these days, but really they're just no sugar or monk fruit for sugar. And they're just smarter ingredients, better ingredients, but still my body's going to need me to process it. And so I won't eat again for 12 hours after my last bite. I'll drink green teas in the morning or coffee and water. It's enough. Trust your body is got the fuel. So very important. Did I take my meds? If you are feeling off, if you are struggling with your mind, your energy, just disconnected, go and connect on the daily with yourself. Meditation is connecting with your heart. Exercise is giving back to your machine. Diet is treating it right? Sleep is re-energizing the machine and the body to keep your mind in the game. That alone right there is worth coming to this masterclass. Guys, I'm telling you, this is the core of it, and people aren't doing it. People on the road are some of the most unhealthy people that I've ever met in my life. There are health people on the road. I've been one of them for over 20 years. I'm the guy, when you get off the bus, I'm over there exercising, doing push-ups, doing the thing, getting laughed at because we're not normalizing health, which affects your mind. We're normalizing talking to somebody and taking, getting drugs, support and all that. Hey, if you need to do it, But what I'm saying is start here. Give yourself the chance. Like, actually give yourself the opportunity to fight back. If you can diminish the disconnection and the struggle by just simply getting in touch with your machine, the thing that is the core of all of your life, then why wouldn't you do it? And most crews not doing it. I've always set the example. I finally have had some people come to me like, hey, Kenny, can I join you on your workout? Come on in. If you ever see somebody on the road, by the way, and you're just wanting to do it, come on in. You know, I used to do this all the time out by the bus. I remember when I was on the tour with the band Perry, they had a trainer on the bus, but then they would always see me over in the corner with my computer flipped up, or after the show, I'd be out on an empty stage. I've done this all over the world, by the way. The stage is sometimes a great place to do it. After the stagehands are gone and people are showering, I'll go out there, I'll wait in line to shower, I'll flip my computer up, and I'll do a 45-minute Insanity Shaun T program. And I had the band Perry, they would pass by me like, we always see, can we join you? And sure enough, the Perrys came and joined me on doing the exercises after they did their concert. And I'm out there, and then, you know, a monitor guy came, and then the front of house guy came, and then the lighting guy came, and the video guy and the video girl came, and we're all out there on the stages. And literally for over a year, I got everybody involved in this. Man, we were doing over 200 and something dates a year. We were gone almost 280 days a year. And the way we were able to sustain that and still love on each other and be happy out there and all of that is because of this. It was massive. So I will take the risk of being that guy, that positive guy, that exercise guy on the road. I will take the laughs from the other roadies because I understand that I'm in a better place for it on the day-to-day with what I'm going through. So, all right. So did you take your meds? The next thing I wanted to talk about is your relationships. You know, the relationships that you have in your life, they affect your mental health, whether you realize it or not. Okay. Are they positive or are they negative? Think about the people that you converse with on the day-to-day. Maybe the people that you live with are bringing you down. You know, maybe the people that you live with are the ones that are like really putting the strain on you. You know, or hey, maybe there's somebody that you need to forgive. You know, maybe there's some conversation that you had. And that's another thing too, is we don't realize pressure is built up over time. You might have had a conversation 2 or 3 days ago, or a week or 2 months ago, that's still stewing up here, right? That's heavy. It's heavy stuff. And that affects your mental health. Do you need to forgive somebody? Is there somebody that you need to, you know, handle some communication breakdown with? You know, are you carrying something that just needs to be handled and off your chest? Hey, tune into that, because it's very heavy and it's affecting your mental health, and you don't have to carry it. You absolutely can just go handle it. Make the call, send the email, talk to yourself about letting it go, because you need to. Your relationships affect you in a massive, massive way. And so if there's anybody negative on the road, I remember I was on tour and I was doing all the normal health stuff that I did, but I was going through a bit of a funk on the road. And it was mainly because of a communication breakdown that I had with one person. And for about a year, I would have a great day. I'm doing my thing. I'm kicking ass with the job. I'm loving everybody. And then I would get around this one person in catering or on the bus or whatever, and I live with this person. You know, I would get cold and quiet because I'm holding on to some dumbass stuff. That's the truth. I was stubborn. And finally, after about a year, maybe a little longer, we would literally sit in the front lounge across from each other, and it would be cold as ice. You realize other people can feel that too? But I was so stressed because of that relationship. I was so getting to the point of depressed because that person was in just this fear of me. And you know what? That person, they felt it too. They felt their own level of mental stress because of that as well. And so finally, after being so long of carrying this weight, I was like, I don't even remember why I'm supposed to be upset at this person anymore. It got that long. Do you know what I mean? You've been there. And so I pulled the guy to the side one day and I just had to eat humble pie. And guys, like freaking magic, I said, hey, I don't remember anymore, but I just can't be mad at you anymore, man. I just can't do it. I don't know about you, but I don't even know what we were upset about back then. I just can't do it anymore. I'm so sorry. Please forgive me. Even if you don't, I just want to tell you, like, I'm forgiving myself. I'm letting this go. I'm so sorry. And he said, Kenny, thank you. I feel the same way. And I got to tell you, that guy to this day is one of my dear friends. And he's actually going to be coming on to one of our crew chats in the future. He's a big timer in this industry. But that was it. You know, I was causing mental health issues on the road because of my relationships. Now, understand something. The opposite thing is in effect too, because, you know, when you have people on the road, like they always say, you know, oh, well, negativity loves company, right? Misery loves company, right? Well, that's true. You know, birds of a feather flock together, right? Like gossip and complaining and those type people on the road. It's like, oh, what? She lending an ear to somebody's complaining and venting is a dangerous thing to do. And just like negativity being a mental drain and suck, positivity as the opposite to this. Positivity loves company. It's something that I love to say because it's true, you know? And I've been the positive guy on the road for 2 decades now, consistently. And the reason why is because like I said, I'm willing to take the risk of these grumpy roadies and these different people to not understand my optimism and my positivity, to think I'm fake, to think it's BS. But what I understand is there's actually a lot more people like me. They're just closeted positivity people. A lot of them are just like, oh, hey, Kenny, just want to let you know, man, I appreciate you for being so positive. It's like, well, why don't you tell everybody that and start being that yourself? Speak up, because positivity does love company. And so this is not about being unrealistic. To me, people will be like, yeah, well, I'm a realist. That's why I'm like this. I'm not a pessimist. I'm a realist. Well, I don't know anything more real than looking at the bright side of things. Because fact of the matter is there's 2 ways to look at it. You can look at it negatively or positively, period. You can look at it in the dark or in the light. There's no middle ground here. And I choose to look at things from a solution and from a growth-focused mindset, a positive mindset, mental health, right? Looking at things in a positive way. It gives me positive relationships. I start to attract other people like me, even on the road. It's why I have such a wonderful relationship with all the people that I have had and do have still to this day on the road, is because I'm consistently looking at things in a positive way, in a way to serve, in a way to just, you know, spread optimism, because that's actually the truth as well. Sure, I could look at things negatively. I remember walking into a venue with a production manager when I was stage manager on this multi-truck tour, and we walk in, I check in get my stage hands, and we're about to go do the walk-in chalk, right? We're laying out chalk motor points and stuff. And he just looks at I think it was Las Cruces, New Mexico. Okay. There's this arena in Las Cruces, New Mexico that is hard. I'm talking like they have airplane tugs that back the gear down from the top of the vom all the way out into the front of the house. It's like, it's a hard day, right? But just such is the challenge of the gig. Well, here's where the spiral happens. Production manager and I walk in, about to go do the walk and chalk, and he goes, Kenny, this day is going to suck. Could you imagine the tone that sets for the day? And the relationship that I had with that guy was just like, I lost, honestly, in that whole tour, I ended up losing a bit of respect for that guy, because you know how many venues sucked to him, how many load-ins sucked to him? Most of them, okay? Because that's where his head was at. This is the same guy that ends up having like a bit of a mental breakdown not long in the towards the end of the tour, rather, because he looked at things like this. You know, he looked at things negatively. And so it's important to invite people that are positive and optimistic into your world. And not only that, just, hey, like people that are thinking higher than you, more positive than you, people that are living at a higher perspective than you, you'll find them on the road. There are people like that, and attach yourself to them, because that will rub off. It's like my friend's chemist dad used to say. He used to say, eventually, with enough exposure, you are going to be contaminated. And that's the truth, man. If you ever tour with me, like, it's going to be hard for you not to be optimistic and positive. When I production manage and tour manage, I end all of my day sheets with positive quotes. I literally come together and you know, get people on the same page before we start, from the locals to all of us. And we have a good time out there. You know, we go through challenges, but we all together solve them, you know, and it will rub off. So another thing too that I want to talk about is having somebody to talk to. Okay. Now, it could be a therapist for you, could be a friend, but here's the thing. Here's what I really want to drive home with this. It is about releasing the pressure, because pressure is built up, right? Mental health is stresses that are built up. It typically just doesn't happen overnight unless you just go through some traumatic issue, some real serious trauma. Mental health issues are built up over time because we don't deal with these things. And just talking it out, getting it off your chest so you don't bottle it up, is very important. I don't bottle stuff up. My wife and I, we have a debrief like every week, maybe sometimes before, but every week, like, we debrief each other. We don't complain and vent. This is not what this is about. If you're not careful and you have somebody that you're venting to and complaining to, that can actually turn into negative pressure and into a negative loop and start to suck the mental strength from your brain, and it can put you in a bit more negativity. And so be careful of venting and complaining to somebody. But what you want is to be able to just talk to somebody matter-of-factly and analyze and just be able to get it out. Because when you bottle it up and you don't get it out, and you got all these issues and you don't want to tell anybody, and then you don't speak it, it starts to get really bad. When you don't talk it out, it starts to get really bad. But not just anybody though. Like, what you're going to want to do is go to somebody that you trust, a friend. It could be a family member. It certainly could be your coach. It could be, a therapist. But this is not what I'm talking about with therapy, where they're just like keeping you in your feelings. Okay. What I'm talking about is being able to analyze it. So, okay, this happened, and then this happened, and I felt this way about it. And then and look at yourself objectively and really let it out. When you start to depressure by just talking to somebody about that, it works wonders for your mental health, because you literally get it off your chest, right? Like, the weight of it, the pressure is released, almost like a valve. But the whole point of this is to not have an outcome with the talk. You're not trying to get somewhere with it. You're not trying to find a solution when you're talking it out. All you're doing is literally just getting it out. You're just talking it out. One thing that I really like to do is, and I'll even tell my wife this, I'll say, hey, babe, I want to talk, but I just want you to listen. I don't need advice. Okay. Could you do that for me? Like, could you just listen and not give me advice? That's what I'm talking about here. And so you can absolutely ask your confidant or whoever you want to talk to, say, hey, you mind listening for a minute? I don't need advice. I just need to talk something out so I can depressurize for a minute. I'm not going to vent. I'm not complaining. I'm just stating the facts, right? So I can analyze it, so I can get this pressure released. So talk it out. Another thing that I want to really drive home tonight is your social media consumption and the influence. Now, we talked about, the influence from people on the gig and people in your life. Guys, social media is heavy. It can be very heavy as a consumer, and it can get very addicting. And for one thing, I want you to not beat yourself up over this, because software companies like Facebook and Instagram and TikTok and all of these companies spend millions and millions of dollars hiring the best scientists in the world to try to figure out how to tap into our attention and to keep us consumed and keep us engaged. So don't beat yourself up over this. I struggle with it too, but the phone is not the problem. Social media is not the problem. We're the problem. And so it's really important to understand that when you're in social media, what happens is we start to go into comparison mode. And when we start to compare ourselves to other people and other people's journey in their lives and their situations, we all know that most people don't share the pitfalls on social. And when they do, usually it's a bit too much and they're just spewing it out there. And then there's a whole bunch of just blah, 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 opinions and all that stuff. Protect your attention, guys. Be careful of the negative social media influence that is on there. You should see my social media. Like, I follow you guys, but like generally the stuff that I see on my feed is freaking bright. It is positive. I see all of my mentors on my feed. You know, I see a lot of the stuff that I want to see. And also I cut out the time, you know, that I spend on it. I do my best, you know, 90-10 life, right? I do my best to not consume social so much. You know, I like to contribute and I do my posts and stuff, and then I'll cut it off. You know, I have to. We don't realize how much time that we actually spend on social media, you know, and if you think about, think about the time that you spend on social. Let's just say that it's pretty safe to say that we could all probably spend at least an hour a day scrolling social media collectively. You guys know as well as I do that an hour is pretty easy to get sucked into, if not one sitting, that's pretty easy, at least spread out throughout the day. But usually it's more than that. But let's just say that we do this for an hour a day, times 7 days a week, or times 7 days, that's 7 hours in a week, right? Times, let's just say an average month is 30 days. And so 7 times 4, 28 hours in a month, right? That we waste giving our attention to on social. Let's just see what that looks like. Times 12, that's 336 hours. Let's divide that by a work week, a 40-hour work week. Obviously, we work longer than that. So that means that's 8.4 40-hour work weeks. That's over 2 months of wasted influence and time that's going into you and affecting your mental health. And you guys know that there's a lot more wasted time than just an hour in a day, but I just wanted to share some perspective with you. That's a lot of time. And the reason why I'm bringing this up, because your attention, if you don't protect it and you're giving it away to the crap on social media that is definitely making you see things from comparison and in a negative light and a sense of lack, this time could be given towards things that are actually going to help you with your mental health, that are given towards things that have like personal development, professional development, things that actually fuel your mental health in a positive way. Does that make sense? That's a lot of time. That's over 2 months of working work weeks that we waste just doing an hour in a day. And guys, if we're doing 2 hours in a day, which a lot of us can do, it's easy. It's easy to do. That's a lot of months. That's a lot of time, guys. It's a lot of time that we're given to that. So protect your time, protect your energy. I know it's so easy standing in a line or sitting in your car, or if you're at work on a gig, you know, sit back in your world doing that. Just understand what you're doing. You know, you're not helping your mental health at all. That's for sure. So understand that type of time and that attention is very valuable, because it'll downgrade your confidence, and ultimately it can lead to a negativity loop. You can just sit there and beat yourself up from that social influence. It's crazy. All right. You know, use it to do something more meaningful, right? Use that time to do something more meaningful. All right. The next thing I want to talk about is setting boundaries for yourself. You know, giving yourself rules to live by. You know what I mean? Like, what are you willing to put in place into your life that will help you fortify yourself and strengthen your mind and strengthen your mental health? You know, you guys have rules here in Crew Coach where you're just like, hey, yeah, I'm going to come in here, and every Tuesday I'm going to come to the coaching sessions. I'm going to come listen to the crew room every day. Like, these are things that you can do to help step your foot forward. But what are some other boundaries that you can set in your life? You know, what other rules are going to put you in control? Because here's the thing about setting boundaries is it gives you more control. And when you have more control, you have more confidence. And when you have more confidence, you have stronger mental fortitude. You have stronger mental health when you feel in control. It's funny that rules gives you control, but it does. It contains the chaos of our lives. You know, when we don't have boundaries set, everything's an emergency. Someone calls, someone needs something. From the moment you wake up to the moment you go to sleep is you're in reaction mode. And when you're always in reaction mode, you're out of control. You got to have some boundaries for yourself. It's why I created Crew Coach, for one, because for years I was coaching people in DMs. Every second somebody would completely ask me a question and I'd pour my heart out. I had to draw some boundaries, and I created my consultations, and I created Crew Coach, and I created my programs and put things in books. And I had to create, those are boundaries for me, because I know that if I didn't set those boundaries, I would be depleted, And so even some of those boundaries, boundaries of your emotions, being offended, when you're offended by someone's actions towards you, or something that someone said is offending you, look, no one can offend you. Maya Angelou used to say, or no, Eleanor Roosevelt used to say that, what was it? I had it on the tip of my tongue. She used to say that no one can make you feel inferior without your consent. And here it is. Mental health, Eleanor Roosevelt was talking about. She said, have some mental strength and boundaries that you're not going to allow yourself to be offended, to be taken advantage or feel taken advantage of, right? Or feel attacked. Because here's the thing, even if somebody is trying to offend you, if they're trying to attack you on the workplace or whatever it is, even if they're intentionally trying to come at you, if you have boundaries in yourself, you've set boundaries where you don't get offended by people trying to offend you because you know yourself. It's a level of self-awareness, If somebody, and this happened to me all the time, especially guys, I am a unique individual in this space because I'm the literal first outward coach in the industry that says, hey, I'm a coach and I'm teaching people this industry. I've been doing this for many, many years now. I used to get and I still do, I get so much resistance, bad talk, the positivity thing, like I'm fake and full of it. I get a lot of negative self-talk headed in my direction. It's sometimes sad. And it used to really affect me because I wanted to help people, my heart, I felt like was in the wrong place, or it was in the right place, but I didn't have the emotional and the mental fortitude to set myself boundaries. And so I became offended. And I used to stew it. And I used to come back home, and my now ex-wife, I used to go back and tell her, oh, this person said that, and this person said this, and I'm, struggling with this, and I can't believe that. Like, why would they feel like that? I'm not like that. I'm not what they said. Here I was trying to defend myself, but why? Because I didn't have boundaries. I didn't allow myself to let it bounce off and go, cool, sorry you feel that way. I get it. Has nothing to do with me. And I'm at a place now where I do the work. I create boundaries in myself. I had a friend of mine tell me, they're like, well, man, I don't like it when people call me after 10 o'clock. I'm like, what does it matter to you? And they're like, yeah, well, that's rude. They shouldn't call me after 10 o'clock at night. It's like, I need to set some boundaries in myself and tell them. It's like, okay, well, first of all, you're assuming they know your boundaries. And second of all, draw the boundary, and it doesn't have to be some ultimatum or attack. It could just simply be like, you haven't responded back until the next day. You turn your phone off into airplane mode, or something like that. That's a boundary. It's like, you don't have to live your life with all of your criteria and force other people to assume and respect your boundaries, because that's not what boundaries are about. You're not trying to make people be on the same page as you. This is about you respecting your own mental health by setting boundaries with what you're willing to accept from yourself. I stopped being offended immediately from all the negative talk towards me and all the attacking the moment I set boundaries and realized that all of that had nothing to do with me, but my reaction to it had everything to do with me. It's very, very important to set yourself some boundaries, because in touring and in the crew career especially, you're going to have a lot of people that are not nice. You're going to have a lot of people that are frustrating and this, that, and the other, because you got all these expectations. And hey, you don't have to push your expectations on other people. If you trade your expectations for appreciation of the situation, you can set some boundaries and keep a strong mental health throughout all of these challenges. You know, I've seen people blow up because of frustrations and pent up pressure and stuff and yelling at me, but it had nothing to do with me. And I did not feel offended. I did not allow them to change my boundary. I didn't remove my boundary and let myself be offended because of their issues. Does that make sense? I hope you're really following this. I hope you're really getting what I'm talking about with setting boundaries. So this is actually an interesting part of this masterclass. Is something that my coach Brendan talks a lot about, is the mental stress and the pressures that we get on the job, right? Like actual expectations of our career and our work from the others. You know, there's this pressure to perform. It's called performance edge, right? And this pressure to perform, if it really leads into insecurity, it can be overwhelming and anxiety, and you can actually literally feel sick to your stomach. You've ever felt like that? Like where you're on the job and you feel so much expectation and pressure, like you actually feel sick to your stomach of doing the thing, right? And you don't want to talk to you, you don't want to move, you don't you don't want to get help, but you really need to talk it out, right? Like you might even get to the point where you feel so sick from this pressure at work to perform that you want to quit. That is a drop in your mental health. Okay, this is actually a mental health issue. And so it's important to know the difference of performance edge and your insecurities, which is your self-awareness, right? Because we also have these self-inflicted pressures, and the performance edge is a positive pressure. Now I'll explain what I mean. Sometimes when you have these self-inflicted pressures, right? Because you want to perform at your top, you want top success in your career, you want to be the best, you've set personal goals for yourself, you've set boundaries to where you're going to really push through. That is performance edge. And it's really important for us to understand the difference of performance edge, which is a positive pressure, and it leading into insecurity, which is feeling not enough, unworthy, insecure about what you're venturing into. One cool thing about self-inflicted pressure also is about, like I said, raising our standards and pushing ourselves. But one cool thing about performance edge, feeling that anxiety, that nervousness, that butterflies before you do a gig, you might know what I'm talking about. That's performance edge. That's your body injecting itself with adrenaline and cortisol and dopamine, and it's getting ready. Your body is getting ready to perform. And we have to be aware of what that is. And so like when I start to feel that little angst going on, those butterflies before a show and stuff, you'll see me in my guitar world. I'm moving, like I'm working my lymph systems. I'm moving that cortisol and that adrenaline around, because if you let it sit there in your stomach and you don't move, those chemicals are little chemicals that are releasing energy. And if you do not move that energy around, that anxiety can turn into insecurities, and you have to release those chemicals. You can internalize that and it'll have nowhere to go. It can start to feel sick in your stomach from the cortisol and the adrenaline pumping through your body. And so it's important to really signal to yourself the difference of performance edge and insecurity. Just know that like you can bring on pressure because you've raised your standards and you want to go after this work mode because it's in ready mode that you're after. But also understand that the opposite can happen, that you can start to feel the negative pressure of not feeling enough, from unworthy. Maybe I shouldn't be on this gig. Maybe I shouldn't be doing this, right? You know what I mean? You can get work insecurities. You can have a sense of inadequacy, that you're just not worthy of that. But see, it's up to us to really get control of this, right? To really understand that this type of anxiety that we have can really be daunting and can stop us. And if you feel this anxiety and feel this unworthiness and all of this stuff, and you haven't done these things to release the pressure, and it builds up and it builds up and it builds up, you can make irrational emotional decisions. You could quit when you shouldn't. You can feel not enough and, completely flop, right? And not be able to get back up, and it can knock your confidence down big time. You can get motivation just swept out from underneath you if you don't understand the difference of performance edge and having that insecurity, because you don't feel like you're enough. But just know that this happens. When you have something that's going to push you and force you to really rise to the occasion, your body's going to be injected with adrenaline and cortisol, and you can't do anything about it. You're going to be all dopamined up. And if you don't recognize that as fuel to use to have an edge with your performance, it will take you in the wrong direction into a negativity loop. And you can have very poor mental health. And if you quit on yourself, man, that even digs you deeper. Okay. And so recognize that. But one thing that I do to deal with performance edge, because I still get it myself, some people get performance edge so bad that they even vomit, because of these chemical buildup in our body. It's a real thing, guys. And so one thing that I do is I lean into all the rest of it. You know what I mean? I take my meds. I'm really, like I said, I'm positive and optimistic. I do the internal work so I can take the performance edge butterflies and inject it into the project, and it can actually help you. So, and then lastly, I'll end with identity. I talk about identity a lot, and this is a big thing with mental health on the road, on tour, and I've talked about 2 different types of depression that can happen on tour and off tour. I talk about post-tour depression, which is when you get home, you feel disconnected. You feel like you don't have that purpose, that sense of purpose, because what's happened is you've left your identity, who you are, on the road with you. You forgot to bring yourself back home with you from the gig. And it's very important to realize that the work that we do, although it's important to identify with the role so you can take complete ownership of the role, so you can say, I am a tour manager, I am a merch person, I am a guitar tech, I am a lighting guy or girl. That's important identity. That's healthy identity. But if you realize, or if you don't realize that is not all you are, that there's an unhealthy side of identity where you feel like your whole purpose in life is only that. It's why I lean so heavy here on Crew Coach in our purpose being really understanding why we're doing that. It's because of identity. I really want you to understand that you've got to bring yourself home from the road. You got to realize that you are your values and your morals and your character and your health, your mental fortitude. Those are the things that you are. Your boundaries, those are the things that you are. The quality of your actions. That's who you are. You're not touring. That's just something that you do. And when you can understand that and you bring yourself home, you can get excited about the stuff that you got going on at home. You won't feel like anxious about having to get back out on the road because you'll be present. It's about coming back to the present, right? This is a big thing with mental health, is identity. Identity is healthy to some degree, but there's a line here, and it's up to you to recognize what that line is. The other type of identity that I like to talk about is I've coined this actually. It's called on-tour disconnect. Okay. On-tour disconnect is something that can reverse happen. It's the same thing where a lot of people with families, a lot of later career people can go through this, where they get out on tour and all they want to be is home. Like they get out on the road and it's just like it's stress out there. They would just rather freaking be home. Their mind, their identity is like, I'm not, like, this is just a gig these days. I would rather be home. And they're disconnected. This is a very unhealthy place to be, because this is the grumpy roadie syndrome, essentially, where you get a lot of these guys out on the road and girls on the road that are just over it. And, it becomes a disconnect. And so it's the same thing. This is about knowing yourself and really connecting with who you are and why you're doing what you're doing. So when you bring it to the what you're doing, you come with it. You come with you on the road, and you come with yourself off the road. Critical to understand about mental health, because this can spiral you into a depression. I had a friend of mine, Daniel, and by the way, it doesn't happen to people it doesn't just happen to people without or with families. Daniel had 2 little girls, and when the pandemic hit, he struggled, man. Like I watched him online. He was struggling, and then finally, things started to kind of have a light at the end of the tunnel. But he was struggling. He had his little girls at home, but he felt like, I just need to get back out on tour. I just need to get back on tour. I lost who I was, and he killed himself. He killed himself because he didn't bring himself back home with him. And it kills me, kills me that he was disconnected. And there's a lot there, obviously, a lot more than that. I talked to him, by the way, about some of this stuff, and he was a big supporter of mine personally, because I put out so much positive stuff. But it's not just the motivation and the inspiration and absorbing positive things that's going to help you with your mental health. It's all of this stuff that we talked about. All of it. It's all of it. It's your identity. It's understanding your performance edge versus your insecurities. It's really setting your boundaries in your life. It's protecting your attention and not wasting your life consuming and comparing on social media, your journey to someone else. It's having someone to be able to talk to without venting and complaining, just releasing the pressure, relieving it. It's strengthening your relationship. It's having new people that encourage the same things, that encourage positivity and optimism, that encourage you raising your standards and being a better person. We know the people that don't in our lives, they're really heavy relationships. It can be very negative. And so it's important to protect that. It's important to take our meds every day. Create a practice for yourself. It'll be work at first, but you discipline yourself enough, it'll become a habit, and then it'll become a practice, and you can take your meds every day, your meditation, your exercise, your diet, your sleep, every day, right? These are the strategies at the core. There's more things that we could go over, but if there's anything that I can leave you guys with, is that these are the strategies that you can, and the perspectives that you can understand and start practicing today, and have something that you do every single day in your life, to where when you feel these emotions, when, not if, when, I talk about this to my crew coach members here, to you guys, because I go through it too. The coach goes through it too. But these days, when I have things that throw me off my game, that shift my mental fortitude and my mental health and it lowers my mental strength, I don't stay there very long. Now because I've put this into practice for so long, and this is not going to happen overnight. You don't meditate one time. There's actually a Netflix series that talked about meditation recently that I watched, and very powerful. They analyze people, just the meditation part alone, not the rest of the things. They analyzed people that meditate, and over a period of time, their mental fortitude, and they did MRIs and all these different tests, and they saw that the parts of the brain that causes mental stress and depression and that stuff reduced. But they noticed that after 1, 2, 3 days of not meditating, the stresses are back, the pressures are back. So that's what I'm saying. This is a daily practice. This is a daily practice. It's your mind. And unless you're truly crazy, right, you have the ability to change. You have the ability to reinforce it. All right. You're not deficient in Prozac or Cialis. Those chemicals aren't even natural chemicals in your body. You don't have a deficiency in that. Your body can create the right chemical effect, the same chemical effect. Like I said, cortisol, adrenaline, dopamine, these things feed positive influence and positive actions, right? But you just have to get very self-aware, and you actually have to put this stuff into practice. You have to. And you got to be honest. You have to be honest with yourself. Are you actually healthy? Are you healthy? And if you're not, are you willing to change? Are you willing to fix it? Are you going to give yourself permission to go through the tough process of doing the inner work so you can fortify yourself through the challenges? Because what we're up against, y'all know, is hard. These careers are not easy. Oftentimes when we talk about mental health and we just want to talk to somebody and stuff, like I told you guys, it's important to talk to somebody, right? To relieve that pressure. But sometimes we just are looking to fix a symptom. That's why oftentimes we take these pills. I've known a lot of people that have like had to wean themselves off these different medications because they realize some of these tactics that they can do and these strategies that they can do, and they've changed themselves chemically from within, and they've had to wean themselves off some of these pills because the pills were fixing the symptoms, but ultimately at the end of the day, they're still the source of the problem there, which is always ourselves. It's getting ourselves in check. It's kind of like if you've got back pain or body pain and you go get a massage, right? And the masseuse massages you and it breaks up some of the stuff in your surface of your muscles and stuff. It feels good for a little bit, but then the reality is you'll start to be in pain again and you need another massage. Or do you need to stretch and do you need to strengthen your muscles? You need to take some supplements like glucosamine and some things like that to actually reinforce your joints. You actually need to fix it at the source. Like trust me, I'm all for massages. Touch is my love language, by the way. I love massages, but at the same time, I'm more interested in being stronger, being more flexible, living in less pain. And that way, these massages aren't just taking out the pain, but they're really making me feel great and reoxygizing my blood vessels and all of that stuff, which happens, right? And so it's a temporary fix, some of these other things. And I'm not saying that it's not important to talk to somebody. It obviously is in that capacity. I'm not saying that it's not important if you really need and you have an imbalance to take those things. What I'm saying is if you haven't started here, then how do you know that you can't give yourself the best chance to do this yourself? From within. The power that you need is from within. Believe me, if people like Kirsty Ennis can come back from that dark place, and my friend Carl, that his tour bus flew off an 85-foot cliff and people died and he was down for a long time. He talked to a trauma therapist and was able to practice a lot of this stuff. This is the stuff that he did, then you can do it too from wherever you're at. But if you have a practice with this every single day, if you're willing to go through the process to strengthen yourself and become fortified from the inside out, man, that is where the mental health game is won. Before it becomes mental health issues, mental health stresses, and mental health pressure, you can depressurize by winning the game from the inside out. Because remember, this career, it does not get easier. Life is definitely not fair, and life definitely doesn't get easier. It's just we get better. And we do that through having a strong body and a strong mind, aka mental health.